September 26, 1983. Deep in a top-secret bunker near Moscow, a man in military uniform is staring at a screen. Suddenly, the night's silence is shattered by a deafening siren. On the screen, in blood-red letters, a terrifying word flashes. Zapusk, launch. Soviet spy satellites have confirmed the launch of a nuclear missile from U.S. soil. A few moments later, the second, third, fourth, and fifth sirens blare. The computer system confidently declares, America has started its full-scale nuclear attack. The military protocol is clear. He has to report this attack to high command immediately. A report that in minutes would trigger the launch of thousands of Soviet nuclear missiles and kick off World War III. A nuclear holocaust that would turn human civilization to ashes. All of history, all the future, and the fate of billions of people depended on one man's decision in that moment. A man who could follow protocol or listen to his inner voice. Welcome to the Lost Files. Today we're telling the incredible story of Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, the unsung hero who ignored orders and saved the world from certain destruction. To understand the importance of what Petrov did, we gotta go back to the poisonous and paranoid atmosphere of 1983. This year wasn't just another year in the Cold War. To many historians, it was the most dangerous and tense year since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The world was on the brink of explosion. On one side, Ronald Reagan, the US president, with his harsh rhetoric, called the Soviet Union the evil empire and unveiled the ambitious Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, a space-based missile defense system that, in Soviet eyes, upset the balance of terror and gave America the ability to start a nuclear war without fear of retaliation. On the other side, Yuri Andropov, the sick and deeply suspicious Soviet leader, was convinced that America was preparing for a surprise nuclear attack. He ordered the KGB to carry out Operation Ryan, a massive spy program to find any signs of NATO prepping for a nuclear strike. In this geopolitical storm, just 3 weeks before Petrov's fateful night, an air disaster pushed tensions to boiling point. On September 1st, the Soviet Air Force shot down a Korean passenger plane, Flight 007, which had accidentally entered their airspace, killing all 269 on board, including a U.S. congressman. The world plunged into shock and rage, and relations between the two superpowers hit rock bottom. It was a powder keg that just needed a spark. At the center of this geopolitical storm was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. He wasn't a frontline soldier or a military commander. Petrov was a 44-year-old engineer and analyst, working in the top-secret bunker, Serpukhov 15, the command center for the Soviet early warning satellite system. His and his team's job was monitoring the OKO satellite system, meaning a network of satellites designed to detect the infrared heat from ballistic missile launches from U.S. bases. Petrov wasn't a fanatic communist or a war-hungry military manual. He had a logical, analytical mind and, thanks to his engineering education, knew well the complexities and possible flaws in computer systems. He knew that computers, no matter how advanced, can make mistakes. On the night of September 26, 1983, Petrov wasn't supposed to be on duty, but due to a colleague's illness, he was there as the duty officer that shift. His official task was simple. If the satellites detected an attack, he had to confirm it and report immediately up the chain of command. His report would automatically start the decision process for a nuclear counterstrike. He didn't push the launch button, but his report was the first domino that would lead to all the others falling. Shortly after midnight, Petrov and his team were staring silently at their consoles. Suddenly, at 40 a.m., hell broke loose. A deafening siren went off, and a large electronic map lit up a base in Montana, USA. The system had detected the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. The main screen screamed the word launch in bright red letters. In the bunker, everyone was frozen. Petrov's 200 subordinates looked at him in horror, waiting for orders. The military protocol left no room for doubt. He had to pick up the phone and report the attack, but Petrov was stuck in place. Something about this picture didn't seem right. He thought to himself, a first nuclear strike wouldn't start with one missile. That doesn't make sense. A real attack should begin with hundreds of missiles at once to cripple our defenses. This was the first seed of doubt. He looked at another screen showing ground radar data. The powerful Soviet radars hadn't detected anything yet, but that was explainable. The missile needed a few minutes to reach an altitude detectable by ground radar. At that moment, the only Soviet eyes were the satellites over America. As Petrov wrestled with his doubts, the nightmare deepened. The system announced the launch of a second missile, then third, fourth, and fifth. Now the screen showed the menacing word, missile strike. The system's confidence level had reached maximum. From the computer's view, there was no doubt left. The attack had begun. The pressure on Petrov was unimaginable. His subordinates were yelling. The hourglass of decision time was emptying fast. Every second of delay could cost the destruction of millions of Soviet citizens. But that voice of doubt in his mind was louder than the warning sirens. He knew the OCO system was new and glitchy. Plus, an attack with just 5 missiles would be strategic suicide for America. Not a surprise first strike. In that moment, Stanislav Petrov made a decision that changed history. He trusted his human instinct and logical analysis more than a multi-million ruble computer system. He picked up the direct phone to High Command,
this is Lieutenant Colonel
but instead
Petrov.
of reporting an
It's
attack,
not an attack.
he said
I
words
repeat,
that went against all
contrary to
protocols.
protocol. No
I'm
launch.
informing you,
Mark it.
our system's
False
information
alarm.
is a false alarm. After that call, Petrov and his team went through the most tense minutes of their lives. If he was wrong, in the next 20 to 25 minutes, the first nuclear warheads would hit Soviet soil. And he'd go down in history as the man whose doubt caused his country's destruction. But minutes passed and nothing happened. No explosions lit up the sky. Silence prevailed. Petrov was right. Later investigations showed that the Soviet satellite had mistaken the sunlight reflecting off high clouds over North Dakota for the heat from a missile launch. A very rare natural phenomenon the system wasn't programmed to detect. But Stanislav Petrov was never hailed as a hero. On the contrary, his decision caused major embarrassment for his military superiors. By defying protocol, he'd exposed the flaws in their top-secret defense system. He'd decided on his own instead of reporting the attack. Something that in the rigid hierarchy of the Red Army was an unforgivable sin. They harshly reprimanded him for not logging the event details in the report book during those tense moments. He got no medal or promotion. Instead, he was transferred to a less important post and soon after, with an early retirement, quietly sidelined from the army. Petrov's amazing story stayed a military secret for over a decade, until after the Soviet Union's collapse. One of his former commanders mentioned it in his memoirs. The story reached Western media and quickly spread worldwide. The world just learned how close it came to doomsday in 1983, and how a nameless lieutenant colonel single-handedly stopped it. In the years after, Petrov received numerous awards from international organizations. The UN honored him. The Dresden Peace Prize was given to him, and an impactful documentary called The Man Who Saved the World was made about his life. But with all this global fame, he remained almost a stranger in his own country. He never saw himself as a hero, and always humbly said, "I was just doing my job. I was in the right place at the right time. That's all." He spent the rest of his life in a small apartment on the outskirts of Moscow, on a meager pension, and finally in 2017, at age 77, passed away in obscurity and silence. News of his death reached global media months later.
Beyond the
Stanislav
comfort of the
Petrov's
page,
story
a warning
isn't just
waits in
about
the
one
night.
tense night.
When vision
It's a
surrenders
deep
to
warning about the
convenience,
dangers of blindly
blindfold
relying
feels
on
like
technology,
progress, yet
and the
judgment still
irreplaceable
burns
importance
brighter
of
than
human
any
judgment
device,
in critical
and in the
moments.
moment that matters.
In a world where our fate is tied to algorithms and automated systems, this file reminds us that sometimes a moment of doubt, a human instinct, and the courage to say no to a machine can be the line between survival and destruction. The world may never fully appreciate him, but we are all in some way indebted to that calm analyst who, in the darkest hour of the Cold War, trusted his humanity instead of following instructions. The scary question that remains is, How many others like Petrov were there on the other side of the Iron Curtain, or in the West? How many other times did the world go to the edge of the cliff and get saved by another unsung hero? Files that may never be opened. To support the channel, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for being with us.